Coming up on Arirang News. For the fourth time in history, South Korea imposes a temporary ban on short selling in a bid to stop prevalent illegal trading practices. A strong rally followed the suspension, with the country's major indices closing out their best sessions since late March 2020. South Korea's military is staying alert for the North's possible third attempt at launching its spy satellite on November 18th, which the regime designated as Missile Industry Day. In Major League Baseball, San Diego Padres' Kim Ha-sung has become the first South Korean and only the second Asian player to win a Gold Glove. Good evening. It's 9 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. We start with South Korea reimposing a stock short-selling ban. It'll last until the first half of 2024 in a bid to prevent illegal practices and level the investing field. On the first day of the suspension, the country's stocks had their biggest rally since 2020, with the country's benchmark Kospi surging well over 5%. Trading on the tech-heavy Kosdaq had to be halted for a moment in the morning. Our finance correspondent Lee Soo-jin leads us off.
South Korean stocks jumped on Monday, the first day that the country temporarily banned short selling. According to the Korea Exchange, South Korea's benchmark index, the Kospi closed up 5.66%, while the secondary Kosdaq market rose 7.34%. This comes after the Financial Services Commission announced on Sunday it would impose a short-selling ban from Monday until at least June next year to prevent further massive losses by retail investors. And the upward trend was witnessed from the opening bell. The Korea Exchange said a sidecar limit was activated at 9:57 a.m. for 5 minutes when the Kosdaq 150 futures soared 6.02% from its previous close, and the Kosdaq 150 index jumped 7.3%. A sidecar limit is a trading curve that is activated when there is a rise of more than 6% compared to the previous close on the Kosdaq 150 futures, and when the Kosdaq 150 index rises 3% for more than a minute. This is the first time in 3.5 years that the sidecar has been activated. The gain was especially prominent in technology stocks, with secondary battery shares of EcoPro BM and EcoPro closing up 30% and 29% each. While this was largely owed to expectations that volatility in battery stocks would be lowered, it is uncertain how long this will last.
There is no guarantee that they will continue to rise in the long run. Those stocks rose because they're currently sensitive to government policies and changes in the market. It's also because the situation has changed quite suddenly.
The surge seen on Monday was also largely led by foreign investors. Unlike domestic institutions and retail individual investors who turned net sellers after the ban was announced, foreign investors bought local stocks. However, in the medium to long term, foreign investors may also turn into net sellers.
It hasn't even been a day yet, so this can't exactly be seen as a pattern. As of now, you can say that there are foreigners who expect stocks to go up, but who knows what will happen as time passes.
The expert added that investors need to continue using fundamental analyses to see which stocks and investors the short-selling ban will impact. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
The major reasons that the Korean financial authorities had to put a temporary ban on stock short selling are prevalent illegal market practices by global investment banks. Our correspondent Moon Hae-ryun takes a look at the effects and concerns of this break on the market.
Starting Monday, short selling is banned for all stocks listed on South Korea's stock market until the end of June 2024. Short selling is when investors trade with borrowed shares in the hope that the price will fall later, so they can buy them back at a lower price and pocket the price difference. The ban comes following a report in mid-October that found 2 international investment banks engaging in naked short selling, which was cited by the Financial Services Commission in a press briefing as a reason for the ban. It also cited economic uncertainty such as the Israel-Hamas conflict, as well as the need to level the playing field for retail investors against large institutional investors. Following the ban, shares on the tech-heavy Kosdaq jumped by over 6% on Tuesday, prompting the activation of the Kosdaq sidecar curbs for the first time in nearly 3 years and a half. One expert had this to say about how the ban could affect the stock market.
It looks as though individual investors' funds are flowing into the market, which is leading to this rise, but it's difficult to predict how long this will last.
This is the fourth time that the country has banned short selling, but the first that financial authorities have ever suspended it without a worldwide financial crisis, such as the global financial crisis in 2008 or the COVID-19 pandemic. There are concerns about the possible ramifications of this unusual situation on the market in the future. The domestic short-selling market is also dominated largely by foreign investors, with the ratio of individual to institutional and foreign investors being at 2:98. As a result, it's expected that the ban will affect foreign investments in South Korean stocks.
There's a possibility that as institutions and foreign investors are unable to short sell, they also won't be able to keep up the same proportion of going long and therefore damage the soundness of the financial market.
As watchers remain wary, the FSC seeks to improve related rules and systems during the 8-month ban. The Commission said it will decide whether to resume short sales in consideration of its improvements. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
To improve commuting for people living outside of Seoul, the government is expediting the opening of GTX lines to the capital, with the first GTX-A from Dongtan Station to Suseol Station set to open next March. The announcement came as President Yoon Suk-yeol visited the GTX-A construction site, which connects Hwaseong City's Dongtan, about 30 kilometers south of the capital, to Suseol in Seoul's Gangnam district. Noting this commute will be around 19 minutes when the line opens, Yoon said more lines will be opened faster, making Seoul reachable in 30 minutes from anywhere in the greater capital region. He added this will create economic opportunities as more people will be open to living outside of Seoul. The president said his government will ensure fares on these commuter trains will remain affordable. Now, over at the National Assembly, ruling and opposition parties alike are gearing up for the upcoming general election, now some 5 months away, as both the PPP and main opposition DP put forth details on their election preparation committees on the same day. Our political correspondent Kim Jung-sil has the details.
The ruling People Power Party officially launched a special committee on Monday that will be in charge of the so-called New City project, which aims to incorporate South Korea's northwestern Gimpo and other satellite cities around the metropolitan area into Seoul. Gimpo is currently part of Gyeonggi-do province, but with a growing population, the city may face division into two, as in North Gyeonggi and South Gyeonggi-do provinces. But the Gimpo City Council says it wants to be part of Seoul instead.
If we take into consideration that citizens of Gimpo already commute, live and enjoy cultural life in Seoul, it makes sense to match where they live to the appropriate administrative area.
However, the main opposition Democratic Party has heavily criticized the move, calling it a political tactic by the ruling party to bolster voter support ahead of the general election. Both the ruling and the main opposition parties also gave details on their general election planning committees the same day, with members including women and young people. They'll be in charge of preparing for next year's general election by coming up with tactics and strategies.
This election, as everyone knows, is more than a party issue. It's a watershed election that will determine the fate of our country. We will do our best to guard against any arrogance that may exist within us.
Meanwhile, the opposition Justice Party's leader Lee Jeong-mi, as well as party leadership, resigned en masse, with Lee saying the decision was made to further solidify and expand the party. The Justice Party will now likely face next year's election by forging a political coalition with other third-party forces such as the Labour Party or the Green Party. Lawmakers across the parties have put their game faces on, with the general election coming up in about 150 days. Kim Jung-sil, Arirang News.
Flying drone taxis could be a common sight in a couple of years in this country. An air taxi has successfully made its test flight in the southern coastal city of Gohung in Jeollanam-do province, which was open to the public for the first time. This is paving the way for more tests in city skies as part of Korea's urban air mobility project using domestic technology. Our business correspondent Shin Ha-young was there.
This air taxi takes off vertically from its vertiport and flies for about 5 minutes without carrying a person. Developed by the Korea Aerospace Research Institute and domestic firms, the KUAM OPUP can carry one person and fly at a speed of up to 240 kilometers per hour, generating less noise compared to a helicopter. It was the first public demonstration of the aircraft following a test run with a smaller size model 2 years ago. The demonstration was in line with the first stage of the Korean UAM demonstration project, known as the KUAM Grand Challenge, which kicked off in August to test the safety of urban air mobility aircraft as well as related infrastructure ahead of commercialization. Along with the flight demonstration in Gohung, Jeollanam-do province, a vertiport, passenger terminal, traffic management system, and AI-based control tower were all unveiled, showcasing their safety and integrated operational capabilities.
The government will refine regulations tailored for UAM to create an environment where firms and researchers can develop technology without a hitch. I hope we can work together towards opening the urban sky by 2025.
In October, the Transport Ministry announced that the UAM Act had been given the green light at a plenary session of the National Assembly. This enactment lays down the groundwork for companies to actively develop technology and test out new services without being shackled down by the existing aviation laws.
Aviation regulations are extensive and strict, but electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft don't require the same level of standards. So, for UAM, we've excluded unnecessary existing rules, except those related to safety, although even some of those could be relaxed.
He added that the government plans to expand the use of UAM from transportation services to logistics, emergency care, and firefighting services. Companies that have demonstrated the safety of their technologies in the first stage of the KUAM Grand Challenge will move on to the second stage, which will take place in metropolitan area from next July for about a year. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News, Gohung.
Despite China's resumption of group tours to South Korea in August, the economic impact remains limited amid Chinese tourists' changing travel patterns. According to the Korea Tourism Organization on Monday, 264,000 Chinese tourists visited Korea in September, increasing nearly 800% on year. However, that figure was only about half compared to September 2019 before the pandemic. It also pointed to changing trends such as more visitors coming as solo travelers rather than as part of a group, including more budget-conscious tourists. And unlike group tours in the past, officials say solo travelers are more interested in popular restaurants and places that are trending on social media than shopping at department stores or duty-free shops, leading to a drop in revenue. Shifting gears, Israel says the Gaza Strip has been divided into two separate parts, North Gaza and South Gaza. Also, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has also ruled out chances of a ceasefire until all hostages are returned home. Lee Seung-jae has the latest.
The Israel Defense Forces said Sunday that it had fully surrounded Gaza City and split Gaza into two. According to IDF spokesperson Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari, the Gaza Strip is now split into North Gaza and South Gaza, adding that there are now widespread strikes on terror infrastructure below ground and above it. Hagari called the encirclement of Gaza City a significant stage in the war between Israeli forces and Hamas militants, as it's now able to pinpoint operations deeper within Gaza. Despite international calls for a humanitarian ceasefire, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reiterated on Sunday that there will be no ceasefire until all hostages are returned first.
I want you to know that there's one thing that we won't do. There won't be a ceasefire without the return of our hostages. Take it completely out of the lexicon. We say it to our enemies and to our friends, and we'll simply carry on until we win. We don't have an alternative.
Meanwhile, Iran warned Sunday that the U.S. will be hit hard if there is no ceasefire. According to the Iranian defense minister, Tehran's message to the Americans was to immediately stop the war in Gaza and implement a ceasefire without further elaborating on the repercussions. Iran considers the U.S. to be militarily involved in the armed conflict. The White House, on the other hand, says hostage negotiations are taking place and added that fighting may be paused to ensure their safe movement. Speaking to CBS on Sunday, Deputy National Security Advisor Jonathan Feiner said negotiations are taking place quietly behind the scenes and that Washington believes there is an opportunity to release a significant number of hostages. When asked if Israel would agree to a ceasefire, Feiner added that the U.S. will work hard to make it happen. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
The South Korean family that escaped from the war-torn Gaza Strip last week has arrived safely in Korea. The Air Emirates flight EK322 carrying the family of 5 landed at Incheon International Airport on Monday afternoon. They were welcomed by their relatives and left the airport with them shortly after. The family, a Korean woman and her naturalized husband of Palestinian descent, and their 3 children lived in Gaza City for more than 7 years. After crossing into Egypt last Thursday through the Rafah border, they spent 3 days in the country before heading to Dubai, where they boarded their flight to Korea. Over the weekend, North Korea designated next Saturday as Missile Industry Day, and South Korea's military remains alert as the regime could try another spy satellite launch attempt on that day. Bae-eun-ji has the details.
The South Korean military says it's keeping an eye on a possible third attempt by North Korea to launch its military satellite on November 18th. Which Pyongyang has designated as Missile Industry Day to commemorate last year's successful test launch of its Hwasong-17 ICBM.
North Korea has designated so-called Industry Day several times before, so we are closely monitoring and tracking the situation, taking various possibilities into account, including a possible provocation on one of those anniversaries.
The Joint Chiefs of Staff added that intelligence authorities of South Korea and the U.S. have been closely coordinating on the matter. Meanwhile, one expert noted that South Korea is also scheduled to send its own military spy satellite from Vandenberg Air Force Base in California, with the help from Elon Musk's SpaceX on November 30th, and explained that this makes it risky for the North.
If North Korea makes an attempt to send its satellite, whether it be on November 18th, or any time up through November 30th, and it doesn't succeed, then they could very likely be upstaged by South Korea.
But he added that North Korea will likely carry out a launch at some point, presumably before the end of the year. The North has failed twice in recent months to put a spy satellite into orbit. Immediately after it failed in its second attempt in August, Pyongyang announced that it would make a third attempt in October, but even into November still hasn't attempted a third launch. North Korea's satellite launch is seen as a disguised test of ballistic missile technology and is considered a violation of multiple UN Security Council resolutions. Bae-eun-ji, Arirang News.
As part of a follow-up to the Camp David summit, South Korea, the U.S., and Japan will launch a high-level consultative group on countering North Korea's cyber activities that fund the regime's nuclear weapons and missile development programs. According to Seoul's presidential office on Monday, the decision comes after Second Deputy National Security Advisor In Sung-hwan met with his U.S. and Japanese counterparts last Tuesday. Under this framework, there will be quarterly meetings on this topic. A UN Security Council report says North Korea has conducted illegal cyber activities to gain funds, including cryptocurrency theft, stealing its largest amount ever last year. Korea and the U.S. are co-hosting a 2-day space forum starting today, that is Monday, here in Seoul. Some 40 government officials and relevant experts are taking part in talks aimed at boosting collaboration in space-related policies on diplomacy, economy, and security. During the opening ceremony, Foreign Minister Park Jin shed light on Korea's intentions to boost investments in space technology, to bolster private sector engagement, and to build more related global partnerships. He also underscored Korea's commitment to a safe and sustainable space environment through its alliance with the U.S. Wildfires are common this time of the year here in Korea, and in light of the prevalence of such phenomenon last year, authorities this year are seeking anti-fire strategies that place priority on prevention through enhanced monitoring. Yoon-jin has more.
When a forest fire breaks out, a high-performance fire extinguishing vehicle is the first to be dispatched. But when the fire breaks out in an area with limited road access, a fire extinguishing helicopter is sent to the scene. Fire departments carry out training for such scenarios to prepare for the most efficient and quick response.
We hold wildfire training annually, through which related personnel can acquire sufficient experience, skills, and understanding of procedures in advance.
In Korea, on average, there are around 35 wildfires in autumn, which makes up 7% of the average annual forest fires. But just last year, that figure almost doubled, with some 66 wildfires that caused damage to roughly 230,000 square meters of land. And authorities are anticipating a similar situation for this autumn. According to the Forest Ministry, the greatest contributor to these forest fires in autumn is the seasonal increase in people visiting the mountains for trail hiking. And with the end of COVID-19 restrictions, there has been an upsurge in festivals and gatherings, which adds to the risk of fire. The Korea Forest Service plans to take tailored preventative measures against the common wildfire outbreak risks. These include monitoring and controlling entry to hiking trails that are vulnerable to forest fires, as well as using artificial intelligence and advanced CCTV to crack down on activities that could cause fires.
We're seeing the risk of forest fires at its highest. We will strengthen tailored preventative measures for each cause, as well as make full efforts with advanced monitoring.
Authorities have designated the period between November 1st and December 15th as a fire caution period. During this period, the Korea Forest Service will be operating an emergency reporting system where forest fires can be reported through 119 or 112. Yoon-jin, Arirang News.
Over in Major League Baseball, Kim Ah-sung of the San Diego Padres has become the first South Korean to win a Gold Glove. Earlier on Sunday, Kim was granted the National League Gold Glove in the utility category, beating Mookie Betts of the Los Angeles Dodgers and Tommy Edman of the St. Louis Cardinals. The utility categories was introduced last year to acknowledge players with exceptional defensive versatility. The Gold Glove winners are chosen through voting by 30 MLB managers and up to 6 coaches from each team. Before Kim, the closest a South Korean came to winning a Gold Glove was in 2012 when Chu Shin-soo was a finalist in the right field category. On the cultural front, K-pop artists won 3 trophies at this year's MTV Europe Music Awards, also known as the EMAs. BTS member Jungkook clinched Best K-pop and Best Song for his solo debut track, 7, becoming the first Korean solo artist to win 2 awards at single EMA. Boy group TXT was named Best Push or Best Breakthrough Artist. The winners were announced on the EMA website on Sunday as the award ceremonies was canceled for the first time in 30 years due to the, quote, devastating events in Israel and Gaza.
Early winter-like conditions will prevail tomorrow for much of South Korea. Some will see lows plunging to single figures at 3 degrees Celsius, which is about 13 degrees lower than today. Other regions such as Daegwallyeong and Yeongju will also see a huge plunge in the readings. Make sure to dress in layers, especially for the morning hours. Lingering showers are expected until tomorrow dawn. As for the amount of rainfall, Gangwon-do province will see 5 to 30 millimeters. The Seoul metropolitan area and Gyeongsangbuk-do province can expect about 5 to 20. Strong winds are in the forecast for most inland regions, including Seoul. Strong wind advisories are in place tonight. Make sure to secure any items that can get blown away, such as signboards. And cold mornings are expected for most inland regions. Seoul will start off at 3 degrees, Daegu at 8 degrees Celsius. Highs in Seoul will get up to 10 degrees, Daejeon 13. Busan will be topping out at 17 degrees. Clear skies will make a return this coming weekend. It's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
Well, that is all for tonight's newscast. Thank you for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with the latest news. Hope everyone has a great start of the week.